Cursed treasures have always fascinated us. They're like real-life ghost stories. Let's kick things off with the Black Orlov. This jet black diamond is a real beauty, but it's got a seriously dark side. Legend has it this gem brings nothing but trouble to its owners. It's been linked to mysterious deaths and freak accidents. The Black Orlov wasn't always called that, though. It used to go by the Eye of Brahma. The story goes that it was stolen from a Hindu idol in India. That's when the trouble started. They say the priest of the temple put a curse on it. From that moment on, anyone who touched it was doomed. The diamond's known history starts in the 1930s. That's when it showed up in the United States. A jeweler named J.W. Paris brought it over. Within months of acquiring the stone, Paris jumped to his death. He leaped from a skyscraper in New York City. Coincidence? Maybe. But it sure adds to the diamond's creepy reputation. After Paris, the diamond changed hands a few times. Each new owner seemed to meet with tragedy. The Black Orlov's trail of misfortune didn't stop with J.W. Paris. Next up were two Russian princesses from the Orlov family. Both princesses met tragic ends, committing suicide by jumping from buildings in Rome. Sound familiar? It's like history repeating itself. These weren't just any suicides, though. They happened years apart, but in eerily similar ways. It's almost like the diamond was calling the shots. The first princess, Nadia Vigin Orlov, jumped to her death in the 1940s. Then in the 1950s, Princess Leonila Galitzin Bariatinsky did the same thing. Both owned the Black Orlov at some point, and both met the same fate as J.W. Paris. After the princesses, the Black Orlov changed hands again. But its new owners were more cautious. They'd heard the stories and knew about the curse, so they decided to try and break it. In 1950, the diamond was cut into 3 pieces. The idea was to destroy the curse along with the original stone. Did it work? Well, that's up for debate. The deaths stopped, but the legend lived on. Today, the Black Orlov sits in a museum. It's safe behind glass where it can't hurt anyone. Or can it? Some say the curse is still active. They believe it's just waiting for its next victim. Others think it's all just a bunch of hocus-pocus. What do you think? Is the Black Orlov really cursed? Now let's shift gears a bit. We're going from a cursed diamond to a cursed ring. This is the gold ring of Silvianus. This little trinket dates all the way back to Roman Britain. We're talking about 1600 years ago. The ring was found in a field near Silchester, England. It's a gold band with a stone set into it. Pretty fancy for its time, but what really makes it special is the inscription. It's got writing on both the stone and the band. On the stone, there's a picture of the Roman goddess Venus. But it's the words around it that are really interesting. They read, Sinicianus, live well in God. The inscription on the band tells a different story. It says, among those who bear the name of Sinicianus, to none grant health until he bring back the ring to the temple of Nodens. The ring was stolen from its original owner, a guy named Silvianus, and Silvianus was not happy about it. So he did what any self-respecting Roman would do. He put a curse on the thief. The curse on the gold ring of Silvianus isn't just ancient history. It's got a modern twist too, and it involves none other than J.R.R. Tolkien. In 1929, archaeologists found a Roman tablet near the ring's discovery site. This tablet had the full text of the curse on it. And guess who was asked to help translate it? Yep, Tolkien himself. Tolkien was fascinated by the story of the cursed ring. Some people think this ring might have inspired Tolkien's own story of the One Ring. Silvianus calls on Nodens, a Celtic god, to curse the thief. He asks that Sinicianus and all who share his name be denied health. That is, until the ring is returned to the temple of Nodens. Now you might be wondering if the curse actually worked. We don't know what happened to Sinicianus. Did he return the ring? Did he suffer from bad health? We may never know. But one thing's for sure, this little gold band has one heck of a story to tell. Section 5, Lydian Hoard, Treasures of the Past. All right, folks, let's dive into our next cursed treasure. We're talking about the Lydian Hoard. Now, this isn't just one item, it's a whole collection of ancient artifacts. These treasures date back to the 6th century BC. The Lydian Hoard comes from the ancient kingdom of Lydia. This was a place in what's now Western Turkey. The Lydians were known for their wealth and their craftsmanship. These treasures were discovered in the 1960s. They were found in some tombs near the village of Gure in Turkey. The discovery wasn't reported right away. Instead, the artifacts were smuggled out of the country. They ended up in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. For years, these treasures sat in the Met. Visitors from all over the world came to see them, but all the while, there was a secret. These weren't just beautiful artifacts. They were stolen goods. Section 6. The Hoard's modern misfortune. The trouble with the Lydian Hoard started in the 1980s. That's when Turkey found out where their treasures had ended up. They demanded that the Met return the artifacts, but the museum wasn't too keen on that idea. What followed was a long, drawn-out legal battle. During this time, strange things started happening. People involved with the Hoard began experiencing misfortunes. One of the lawyers working on the case suddenly died. Then, a key witness in Turkey also passed away unexpectedly. Remember those tombs where the treasures were found? They became a hotspot for illegal excavations. Many of these treasure hunters met with accidents. Finally, in 1993, the Met agreed to return the Lydian Hoard to Turkey. The curator who had acquired the treasures for the Met was charged with conspiracy. The Lydian Hoard had claimed one last victim before returning home. Section 7, Fact or Fiction, the nature of curses. So, we've talked about some pretty spooky stuff. Cursed diamonds, rings and ancient treasures. But let's take a step back for a moment. Are these objects really cursed? Or is it all just a bunch of hocus pocus? Scientists and skeptics would say yes. They argue that there's no such thing as curses. It's all just random chance and human imagination. When something bad happens, we look for explanations. And sometimes a curse is the easiest thing to blame. Even if curses aren't real, belief in them can have real effects. It's called the nocebo effect. If you believe something bad will happen, you might actually make it happen. Your fear and stress can lead to accidents or health problems. There's also the question of self-fulfilling prophecies. If you think you're cursed, you might take more risks. Or you might be so focused on the curse that you miss real dangers. Section 8, the allure of cursed objects. Despite the skepticism, cursed objects continue to fascinate us. Why is that? Well, for one thing, they make great stories. Who doesn't love a good tale of mystery and misfortune? It's like a real-life horror movie. These stories tap into our love of the supernatural. They make the world seem a little more magical, a little less ordinary. There's also the thrill of danger. Cursed objects are like forbidden fruit. We know we shouldn't touch them, but that just makes us want to even more. It's the same reason people like extreme sports or horror movies. There's a rush that comes with facing danger, even if it's just imaginary danger. Cursed objects also appeal to our sense of justice. Many of these curses are tied to theft or disrespect. In each case, the curse seems like karmic payback. It's satisfying to think that wrongdoers will get their comeuppance, even if it's through supernatural means. Section 9. Debunking myths, a scientific approach. Now let's put on our scientist hats for a moment. How would we go about testing if these objects are really cursed? Well, it's not as easy as you might think. Curses aren't exactly measurable in a lab. But there are some things we can look at. First, we'd need to establish a clear pattern of misfortune. Random bad luck doesn't count. We're looking for consistent, unusual events. Next, we'd need to rule out other explanations. Maybe the Black Orlov's owners were all risk-takers. That could explain the accidents. Or maybe the Lydian Hoard was poorly stored, leading to health issues for those who handled it. We'd need to consider all these possibilities before jumping to curse as an explanation. We'd also want to look at the psychology of the people involved. Section 10. The power of belief. Curses in culture. Whether curses are real or not, one thing's for sure. They have a powerful hold on our imagination. Curses show up in stories and legends all over the world. From ancient myths to modern urban legends, the idea of a curse is universal. It's like we're hardwired to believe in them. Curses play a big role in many religions and spiritual beliefs. In some cultures, placing a curse is seen as a form of justice. It's a way for the powerless to get back at the powerful. In others, curses are seen as a type of black magic, something to be feared and avoided.